Welcome back, everyone. We got Joel Farrell from Strive for 25 back for our weekly chat. And today, I think we're going to talk about a topic that's kind of dear to me because I live in a high cost of living area and some taxes. But welcome back, Joe.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So today I saw a tweet from one of my good friends, Hugo Alonso from Stay Winning Podcast, and he kind of put, like zero income tax is a wealth hack. And that's kind of, where he would probably retire or move to. So I just want to get Joel's opinion on, is that something he thinks about as far as maybe where he wants to live or where he may want to retire? But yeah, welcome back.
Thanks. I think it's an interesting topic because you hear zero income tax, and then when you start to dig into the numbers and what that actually means, because at the end of the day, it's a zero sum scale. Like if they're not, if income taxes aren't being collected, they still have bills to pay from a state legislation standpoint and running all the agencies. So they're making up for it in other ways. And from my seat, and again, this is just my perspective on it because this is just what I deal with. I'm working in the mortgage industry, so I'm dealing with people's finances and real estate. So, you look at a property that, let's just say it's 3,000 square feet and it's a nice home in a metro area, Dallas, Houston, right, or Chicago. Home prices, I mean, actually are probably lower than some other places because of property taxes. Like I was just looking at a property for a client in the Dallas area. This is a client moving from Louisiana, and it's like, okay, go buy a $700,000 property, and property taxes are like $14,000. Now, I mean, 700,000 may seem like a big number, but in that area, I mean, it's just a normal house. And so, like in the state of Missouri, it may be half of that. If you look in Ohio or a couple other Midwestern states, Tennessee, it may be half of that. So like if you're not paying income taxes, they may be pulling it from other places. Same thing with Florida as another example. Their property taxes aren't as high, but anytime you do a transaction that has to do with real estate, there are transfer taxes that go to the state and the county. I think like I forget the numbers on a refinance is like 0.24%. On a purchase it's more a percentage of the loan amount. So they're making revenue in other ways. So if you in Mark and you and I were talking about this, like let's say you're a professional athlete and you're making a $25 million salary, and you are homesteaded in the state of Texas, but then you live in a different place where taxes or real estate is maybe different. Like that could be a flex because no income tax. I mean, like if you're making $25 million, and again, I don't know what the income tax for state is. And I think in Missouri it's like 6 or 7%. I forget. And other places, but like, I mean, that's $1.5 million right there. That's six
Yeah.
percent.
Yeah.
So if you live somewhere else, then cool. But like if you're stacking up properties in those states, and rental properties, they're making up for it in other ways. So I think it's an interesting conversation, but there's just more to it than just okay, no income taxes.
Yeah. Well, I think that was just the gist of, the basics of it, but I think it was more based on kind of like, you know, people move to certain areas for maybe cost of living and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of at what point or where do you draw the line as for are you going to live in the middle of nowhere just because cost of living is that much lower, taxes are lower, but you're going to maybe have to deal with, you know the weather is horrible maybe in that certain area. So what is the factors that kind of you base your decisions on? So like California, for example, wonderful weather, great weather year round, just like Hawaii, but cost of living is high. Taxes are, income tax is high, but like Hawaii has lower property taxes, but the cost of the property is so high. So,
Mm-hmm.
where do you base that decision? And I think for me, it always comes back to kind of, um, find a place where you're going to enjoy, for the most part, because you're going to live there. Because you can always visit other places and travel, and I think that's what I'm looking at. I want to move to a place and retire somewhere where I'm going to have fun, and I can maybe avoid the weather, at certain times of the year, by
Mm-hmm.
traveling or vacationing somewhere else. But the money that I'm saving by living there, for the majority of the part, is going to help me travel and do other activities.
This is such an interesting conversation because as things have gotten tough and tight for so many people from a finances standpoint, not just, home ownership, but just like paying the bills, you know, I'm seeing people readjust their lives in so many different ways in terms of how they live and what they spend money on and what they do and what they don't do. And just, like I saw an article or a video of somebody talking about car ownership. Like you're gonna, you go get a car, a brand new car, may car costs 40,000 or 70,000 or whatever the price may be, with a payment at the X, $500, $1,000, whatever it is. And it's like when you look at the utility of that car in terms of that person using it, like, yeah, like the benefit is I can go anywhere I want to go in theory, like whenever I need to go and not have to really plan it out. But like if I'm driving to and from work and it's a 10-minute drive and I do that 5 days a week, and then maybe I go to the grocery store, on the weekends or whatever, like that usage of that car from a percentage of the day is like a fraction. And it's like that car, if it were put into more of a pod system, yeah, there are gonna be more delays, and you won't be able to do everything like right away when you want to do it on a whim if you have an urgent thing to do. But the utility of that like becomes different if you look at it differently. If you look at it in terms of like the full scope of that car being used versus when you use it, you're paying so much money for that for using it a small percentage of your day, your week, your month. And I bring that up because that's just an example of taking something that we look at that car like we need a car to go to and from work. We need to have that. And then it just sits there overnight. It sits there during the day at work or whatever. And so when it comes to home ownership and where people live, and you have examples like weather and the coastlines and the water and lakes and like those things, like those are tangible things that you can't really replace. But like if I live in, let's just say Denver, Colorado, right, where I'm in the mountains, like that's can be a pretty high cost area, but like people love the mountains, right? If I live in Chicago and it's a high density, high price area, I mean, yeah, but there's cool things around there. But you're in the Midwest, like there's nothing really tangible different about that. Same thing with like Austin, like it's a high tech city, like whatever, but very expensive. Like there's certain things where like, okay, how important is it to be in that area versus, maybe you live 2 hours away or 5 hours away in a much lower cost area, and you're trading other things about, the area. But really, in my opinion, like it comes down to human relationships, right? Because the landscape of where you live is obviously an important part, but also those relationships. Like if I go pick up my life and I go move somewhere else for a new job, and let's say the cost of living is better and I go buy a house, I've just put myself into a brand new place. I don't know anybody. Now I have to build new relationships. And that's and then what, right? Do you build new relationships? Do you become a hermit? Do you stay in your house? Do you work remotely? Like whatever. So like what are these trade-offs and the human relationship part? Is your family going to be around you? Are your friends going to be around you? Or having those relationships by phone, by FaceTime? Like how important is it? So like I'm seeing people pick their lives up, go move somewhere, live there for a year and a half, and then go to the next place because they want to be able to scale into real estate.
Hey,
They're
you're
trading these
going you're
things.
going into our topic number two for later,
Oh
Sam,
shit.
right? But no, that's a perfect lead up to that. But it's funny that you kind of mentioned like the vehicle also, because I saw a post or an article a while back, and this was talking about like real estate agents, right? Because a lot of times before, you drive your clients around, show them properties, look at properties, and so a lot of them felt like they had to have a really nice vehicle, where because the clients are going to be sitting with them driving around for hours maybe. But COVID really helped that out because you had to social distance, so you weren't driving clients around, you were meeting at the properties, or they were driving separately and you'd meet. So I found that interesting, where a lot of agents were like, oh, I have so much relief now that we're not driving the clients around, we're meeting at the location. They didn't feel that obligation to have their car detailed all the time. And so that was a funny thing I saw about, as far as a vehicle, a lot of times for their work, a lot of, like you're saying, is what kind of return also you're getting from it, right? Because at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, it still gets you to your destination. But yeah, I get it. If you're driving clients around, then maybe you do have to upgrade slightly, but it's also hopefully you're making some sales and transactions to offset that.
So, I mean, do you know any, going back to the tax topic, I should have pulled up a kind of a graph of the different places that have no income taxes, which I can do here in a second.
Well,
But
maybe if I gave you a little heads up, then you would have been able to do that, but I didn't really.
Alaska, you mentioned Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, which I didn't know, Washington, Wyoming, Texas. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, like I think it, like you said, it, they'll get you some other way usually, right? So I think it really, you have to find that balance of what means the most to you, right? Because at the end of the day, like we always talk about like expenses and whatnot. You can only save so much, right? So you
Hmm.
also have to enjoy, and there is a purpose to this. So there has to be that balance. And like for me, the way I'm looking at it is, I don't need to be in Hawaii. I mean, yet, I enjoy it, but I'd rather visit here. And I think I would enjoy it more that way. And, I like to hit the road and drive and see sporting events and things like that. So I think that's why for me, I'm looking to retire, somewhere else and relocate and then visit Hawaii. And when you're here, you just enjoy all it has to offer, the beaches and whatnot. And, like you said, you can get out of the bad weather, maybe that where you live in the wintertime and come here and visit when the weather's pretty
Were
nice.
Were you born there?
Yep.
What about your parents?
Yep.
What did your dad do?
He was an engineer, civil
And-
engineer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, but same thing with them. I mean, my parents both work for the city, so they have great pensions, retirement, and their home is paid off, and they're really that boomer generation where they've built a lot of wealth in their home, and they have this pension that is paying them a great retirement of benefits. And like I said, I really kind of saw that, and I kind of was heading down that path. And but of course my pension is not the same as theirs, and things do change, but the boomers definitely took advantage of things.
I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. You take what you get, take what you can get that's available, you know?
Yeah.
Like take what you can get, meaning like it was it 70 degrees right there out your way?
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing a jacket. It's kind of cold.
Oh,
No,
it's kind of cold.
yeah, no.
68 degrees cold. It's 10 degrees here, and that's
Oh,
miserable. Oh my
well,
God.
I just talked about this too on a live on Instagram with one of my friends in Pittsburgh, who's a realtor, handyman, flipper. But we were talking about winterizing properties,
Hmm.
so that's same thing, right? You kind of where you're gonna relocate or retire or live or even invest. There's these things that you have to consider, and yes, Hawaii's prices, for real estate is high, but a lot of people want to invest here because of maybe less headaches from weather related things, freezing pipes, hail, things like that. So from, yes, the cost is higher to maybe get a property or real estate here, but at a lot, a lot of times, and, even myself, I manage properties out here. We don't have a lot of the headaches that maybe a lot of property managers or landlords have to deal with, in other states.
Yeah. And you guys don't have to deal with hurricanes, right? They don't, it's not very common out your way, right?
No, we get like hurricanes, tsunami warnings, things like that. But a lot of times, you know, we always joke about it because I think technology has become so, I guess maybe efficient is not the right way, because a lot of times you get warnings and nothing happens. But technology has them be able to pick up hazards maybe a lot sooner than they used to, years ago. So you get these warnings and notifications a lot more in advance, but a lot of times it may not reach us, right? So it's kind of, you get a lot of warnings out here, but so far, knock on wood, nothing major has happened in a long time. And I think a lot of that just has to do with technology too, though, right? They're picking up certain signs a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, so for the most part, the weather's great. So there's not a lot of wear and tear on property. Yeah, we do have termites and things like that, but nothing that for the most part you don't have to worry about. From summer to winter, maybe there's not that much of a where you're gonna, people have to winterize properties and prepare it for certain times of the year and things like that. So, but
Yep.
yeah, well, so where would we'll wrap this up with maybe like, are you gonna stay in Missouri? You think like that's where your vision, like you're probably gonna end up retiring there and just you know ma- planning your roots there, staying there, or what is your vision?
Yeah. I mean, I hate the cold weather. I deal with it, but I hate it. I mean,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Wait, so were you born there?
Yeah. So I
Okay.
was born here. My parents were born here. My wife's family's here. So, um, I mean, and then the boys are four, so we'll probably be here for a while before we decide to do anything, if we do anything. So I don't know.
Hmm.
So, um, the other, yeah, I mean, having the ability to travel or vacation, be able to do more of that, I think would be cool. But right now, just things are so busy with work. Like if you were going to relocate in the future, what stands out in your mind?
I still think that cost of living, of course, is important. But I'm not gonna make that like it has to be, the lowest cost of living area. I think a reasonable cost of living, safety, and just kind of maybe not. I don't honestly. I probably don't want to be on like the coast. I kind of want to be a little more central, where I can go in a lot of different directions and travel and see a lot of different things. And especially like from East Coast to Hawaii is a big journey to go, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if you have family out on one side, it's a 1 2 day full adventure basically. And if you have grandkids or little kids, children, it's a lot of planning involved. So that's something you got to consider also. So I'm sure I'll still have ties to Hawaii, when I do retire. So that's something I gotta consider, as if I have grandkids and things like that, and making that travel. So
Yeah. Yeah. Like for me, like what I would have in mind would be just kind of like that southeastern corridor from Texas to Florida, the Carolinas is kind of,
yeah.
if I had anything in mind, maybe that would be kind of ideal. Oh, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't traveled all across the country. So I mean, but I do love, like you said, the Carolinas, North, South Carolina, that area. So, I'll probably be somewhere around there. And, the weather doesn't get too cold. So
Yeah.
it's not, it's tolerable, and I actually enjoy it. And that's maybe because I wasn't, I didn't grow up in it. I wasn't born there. So for me, I actually enjoy it. But I do see how it can get tiring, if you're doing it for, 40, 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was a great topic, and you kind of led into our second topic. So we'll wrap this one up. And yeah, thanks for doing this, man.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.